With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
And after a restful Super Sunday, the stars and cars of the PRL INDYCAR Fixed Series are back in action to continue a championship battle that's still only 17 points wide across 4 drivers. And as they arrive at America's premier road racing circuit, it's the home stretch of the season, with only 4 races to go to decide the 2025 Season 1 champion. RaceSpotTV welcomes you to round 6 of the PRL INDYCAR Fixed Series. My name is Joey Tebbin. Ewan O'Leary is alongside me in the booth, and behind the scenes on Sound and Pictures is Mr. Ramiro Agustin Cisneros. Ewan, grade 1 track, one of the longest tracks on the schedule, and a road course round for the first time in a couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly. The last time we had a road course was just towards the end of January at Mid-Ohio. That was a race filled with drama. The top 2 in the championship, or at least they were at the time, Jake Vasconcelos and Dave Menino, collided on the way down in towards turn 3. That was pretty exciting. We're expecting a pretty similarly exciting race here today as well. Road course racing is going to play a big part in this run to the end of the season, with Circuit of the Americas to come in 2 weeks' time. Sebring as well, 2 circuits that don't see, or haven't recently anyway, seen very much IndyCar racing. Certainly going to play a big role in this title fight.
We'll have to respect the bumps at Sebring, and you'll have to respect the bumps at Iowa for that matter. The newly repaved Iowa Speedway, not yet scanned in iRacing simulation world just yet, so that's still the old bumpier track. And Pocono to finish off the season, the first super speedway these drivers are going to deal with in about 2 months. The last one was Kansas in round 2 of the season. As I mentioned, the top 4 in the championship, Vasconcelos, Kranifus, Menino, and Kurnow, separated by only 17 points. 2nd through 4th separated by only 2 points. It could not be any closer. And you can never count out drivers like Ken Miller or James O'Brien, who have, in Ken Miller's case, had race-winning pace this season at Mid-Ohio. James O'Brien, he's had race-winning pace, just hasn't been able to win a race just yet. This championship battle is wide open, and at a track like Pocono finishing the season, it's going to be wide open until that final race of the season. The team's championship is also up for grabs. It's a little bit more separated, as Team Hype have pulled a little bit of a gap over SRT Orange, about 44 points there, but 44 points in a team's championship, that is not much. That can very, very easily be overcome, especially with 4 weeks to go in the season. We'll keep watching that. We'll keep calculating those numbers, and the team's championship will continue to be enthralling to watch. But the team's championship, the driver's championship, none of this would be possible without the sponsors that bring the PRL INDYCAR Fixed Series to us. Logitech G wheels and pedals are equipped with true force feedback to help you feel the road and own the race. Use code PRECISION5 at checkout on logitechg.com for 5% off your purchase. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and also get a 5% discount, also using the Precision5 coupon code. The Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with The Butt Kicker. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And last but not least, get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. Qualifying underway here at COTA. Only about 18 drivers on the grid, about 10 minutes to go, and it's kind of unfounded territory in the PRL Ewan for a track that is very notable amongst racing fans of the world. We race here in the real world in NASCAR and Formula One and many other series. I feel like it doesn't get much of a rotation on iRacing and hasn't been rotated in IndyCar and the PRL since 2014, so it's uncharted territory all the way.
It is, yeah, and that means generally that the drivers themselves haven't quite got that sort of residual practice that maybe you would have racing Indy cars through, you know, if we went to Indianapolis, for example, where everybody who drives this car will be very familiar with how it is because they will have driven it fairly recently, if not earlier on in the year, if not earlier in the month, to be honest. So yeah, it is good to get them on a new circuit, and it means that the practice this week, and indeed over the last couple of weeks actually, because it is a couple of weeks since we've raced, will have been even more important. And it's a really fiddly circuit as well. I mean, in cars like these, I think this circuit is quite badly suited to them, actually. The racing is pretty good, especially in the final sector, I think. But, you know, I don't think these cars are made for them at all. The final sector, for example, there's a lot of slow speed corners. These cars were not designed to be going at slow speeds at all. And that's what makes these cars really tricky, really. You see it in lots of high-speed, high-end cars. You see it when the high-end prototypes and even GT cars go around here. It doesn't feel quite right through the final sectors, especially in prototypes, and that same goes for open wheelers as well. It just feels a little bit wrong, a bit too slow.
Jordan Kurnow has been Mr. Consistency this season. He did win a race at Kansas, had a pretty solid day at Worldwide Technology Raceway a couple of weeks ago as well, finished in the top 5 there, but on road courses, he hasn't necessarily had that same pace. He's been very good at staying out of trouble, though. Remember at Spa, the first round of the season, he started 18th, ended up finishing 6th. Seems like that might be a similar story here, as he's still a couple seconds off the pace, raw pace-wise, but if he can stay out of trouble, definitely look for Jordan Kurnow to make his way back up front. We're riding on board with Jake Vasconcelos now, your championship leader, also about a second off Dave Menino. See what he can do as he throws it into the final sector, gets a little bit of understeer through that second to last corner, and through the only named corner on the track, the Andretti corner, finishes off the lap at COTA. Does he have anything for Dave Menino on this lap? Not quite. A 1:47.8. It's about where he was before.
Yeah, he's going nowhere, really. It's pretty bad early signs for Jake Vasconcelos, I would say, in third place. The gaps are very large, and that speaks a little bit to the difficulty of the circuit I was talking about a little bit earlier on. But Vasconcelos being so far behind Menino is a bit of a concern. Not sure whether we should be concerned about his road course speed just yet. I mean, I'm discounting Mid-Ohio a little bit because of the difficulty he had during that race with incidents. But, you know, it ran well in Lime Rock Park, finished up inside the top 5, finished on the podium at Spa. Don't think there's anything to be worried about in terms of his road course speed, but for whatever reason around here, Dave Menino is far, far quicker than Vasconcelos. Having said that, the championship leader is still third, so that is absolutely fine for qualifying. He's just got to convert and limit the damage maybe tonight on Menino, who looks like he's the strongest driver in the field.
We can't get too far ahead of ourselves. There still are 7 minutes left in this session. If you time this right, that could be 3 or 4 laps to the end of qualifying, depending on how fast you're going, depending on how long of a run you do. Just saw Kyle Strykars crossing the line there. He's still P9, looking for a little bit more pace. Don't believe Kyle Strykars has ever won at COTA in the PRL, whether he's been racing in the old Indy Pro 2000 series, the old Formula 3 series. He's definitely raced here before, but he's definitely looking for one of his best results this week. Joshua Chinsky, Strykars' teammate, goes up to P4 in his first lap of the session, 15 minutes into it, so look for him to improve. And Adam McDonald on your screen right now in the Iron Brewmobile, sending it through the final 2 corners.
Yeah, very nice. Into the final corner for him. Using a little bit of that, you need to get a little bit further over to the left-hand side there, using the inside curb, and then let it run out even into the Astro. It's not a very long run towards the line, but that's not a big improvement really for him. It is quite close back there though, and so it just gained him quite a few places despite the relatively small improvement. It's 11th place for him. Lucas Santos moves up to the top 5 as well, so that's a decent improvement for him, but some of these gaps are something like we haven't seen so far this season. 7 tenths between first and second, 5 tenths between 8th and 9th. But then the next 7 cars or so, separated, or 6 cars, so it's separated by only 6 tenths of a second. So it's very weird the way the field's structured at the moment.
Daniel Cranafus come through the final sector. Was inspired, Ewan, by the Iron Brew car. I'm going to do the rest of the race in my Scottish accent.
That accent was so far off, I didn't even realise it was Scottish until you said it.
Don't know what you're talking about, lassie.
I'm not going to join you in attempting.
It's unfortunate.
It would only be worse. So you know,
that's true. It's only worse for Daniel Cranafus, as I think I may have set him off his game. Got very, very tight through the second to last corner, and then got very, very loose through the final corner. He's realizing the full extent of what an Indy car can do. You can understeer and oversteer on the same lap if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you're understeering through a corner like that, on a sort of traction zone, if you like. If you get a bit too frustrated with it and you think, oh, I've got to make up time on the exit now, you can do that. You spin the rear tyres up. It wasn't that the car was loose, really. It was just that his right foot was too heavy on that occasion. So you've got to just be a bit patient with it. That's what I mean about these slow speed corners. Cars are not designed to go that slow, and they understeer a bit more than some people would like, and there's some oversteer just for good measure as well. They're not comfortable going slow speed, as Ken Miller finds out in towards turn 11. It's very difficult, and you've got to be patient, I think, during these even these qualifying laps, and certainly in the race as well. Got to be patient. You can't be rash on the throttle, otherwise you'll be spinning up the rear tyres and maybe spinning around, but perhaps more importantly, chewing through the tyres as well over the course of the 30 laps we've got here tonight.
And this track was specifically designed by Kevin Schwantz for Formula One racing. That's why there's so many tight corners, there's so many acute angles and heavy braking zones. Wasn't necessarily designed for what we're used to in IndyCar racing, with tracks like Road America, Watkins Glen, Mid-Ohio, fast-flowing natural terrain road courses. There's still parts of this track that are fast and flowing, like the S's that Kyle Strykars is driving through right now, but right after you go up over the top of this hill, you got that very, very tight braking zone at turn 10, very, very tight braking zone at turn 11. These are not corners that you're necessarily used to driving in an IndyCar.
Yeah, and again, if you're on a single monitor, another thing that's difficult around this circuit is actually seeing where you're going. If you're on a triple screen or a VR headset, then I think you'll be fine, but actually trying to spot the apexes at this circuit is very difficult. You're often taking very late apexes, very wide entries. There's Drive Touch with a nice slipstream. Watch him spot the apex here. Actually uses the rear end to get it in a little bit there. That's quite nice, but you're turning in so late. Look how open the inside is. Good for overtaking, as I was discussing through the final sector. Really good for passing, but not great when you're on a single monitor trying to see where you're going. And that can be a real problem. There's Adam McDonald going a bit wide. He will drop back to pit lane with 2.5 minutes to go. That looks like his session is over.
He tried his best, and now he's going to take a rest. And that's the end of that. Former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan is here. A little bit deeper in the order than he'd like to be, as driver who definitely exceeds on the road courses in closed wheel machinery. Still trying his best here in these open wheel Indy cars. Through the final sector, looks like he's got it under control, but there's been a lot of improvement on the timesheets over the last couple minutes. Joshua Chinsky had a big lap up into second. Kyle Strykars just jumped himself up into the top 9. No improvement for Ken Miller, but there's clearly still time out here on the track, and with 2 minutes to go, that's 2 more laps you can improve upon.
Yeah, I think the lack of experience relative for these drivers on this circuit means that in a qualifying session like this, they are more likely to improve more as they go along. That we weren't really seeing that at a circuit like Mid-Ohio, where drivers would have had more practice likely in the past. And so even in this qualifying session, they're improving. They'll be improving all the time in this event. They'll be getting better with every lap that goes by. And That's why we're seeing such improvements late on when you don't normally from this standard of driver. Chinsky now only half a second away. Greg Seitz has been joined on 7 tenths back by Jake Vasconcelos, who's improved by 3 tenths himself. Steve Baker's now within a second of pole. So Menino clearly has done the practice because he's not improving late on. He's reached his limit early and he's happy with it because he can't go any quicker. The rest of them, I think, are still getting up to speed a little bit here, and that's probably going to continue in the race. Oh dear.
Steve Baker, another one of those drivers who consistency has not been his friend this season. The 3 races he's finished in the top 10. In some cases, he's been on the podium, but 2 other races were DNFs, and that has not helped his championship chances whatsoever. It's not too late to continue to put up a challenge, but it's very, very unlikely unless he can start ripping some wins here. And we ride on board with Lucas Santos again, or at least we were for a moment. I feel like this is the most impressive thing we've seen out of him all season long as well. He's had pace, he's had some good runs, but he's legitimately in the top 6, was close to the top 5, and he's going to pull off and end this qualifying session, guaranteed to be in the top 10, essentially.
But pretty much. Ken Miller can't even knock him off that 6th place either. He goes 7th. What about Daniel Cranafus, who really does need to improve, and he does, up to 6th place. He's still a second off Menino, and that's a problem, because he's only 1 point ahead of him in the championship, but he is at least up inside the top 10. And that same can't be said, I'm afraid, for Jordan Kernow, down in 15th place. This is a bad qualifying. He doesn't have any drop points to fall back on. He has got to move forward in this race.
And Cranafus has chosen the RaceSpotTV TV Time Deluxe Special. Start your final lap at the latest possible moment and guarantee that we're going to show you for the longest period possible. We're essentially going to see his entire lap here, as I do believe he's the last driver on track who will set one final lap. He's got a couple cars ahead of him who still have one more lap in the books. I believe Menino has one more lap in the books. One driver ahead of Cranafus pulled off over to the left there. I don't think that'll be a timed lap. Adam McDonald has one more lap. This is your last chance.
It is. Let's hope that traffic doesn't play a role. Well, it might be for slipstream reasons. Actually, that's very late on the brakes. Oh, he's just pulled it up in time. Might actually be a bit quicker than what he was doing before. Now in towards the right-hander of turn 13. Just making it into one corner effectively with 14. Now doing the same. A nice arcing line through the turn 15. That was a bit of a slide. That's not quite going to be as quick. Now getting on the power and ready to the left-hand side, ready for the long right-hander, 16, 17 and 18. The left side tyres will be really burning themselves alive. And now through the final couple of corners. Again, high speeds, track limits are enforced through there. And no lap time for Cranafus. He doesn't decide to carry on.
Kyle Strykars crosses the line. He'll start P9. Ken Miller, no improvement from him either. He'll be P8. So at the end of it all, 16 drivers qualified, 18 drivers in the session. So James O'Brien and Mark Kalin electing not to qualify. They'll start from the back of the field if they do elect to take the start of this race. But Dave Menino, yet again, will start on pole. Or not yet again, actually his first pole of the season, just yet again in the PRL. Joshua Chinsky, his teammate, will be to his outside. Greg Seitz had a quiet qualifying session, but he'll be P3. That could be a good spot into turn 1. Jake Vasconcelos starts alongside him. Steve Baker, in a familiar place, qualifying in the top 5, will start alongside Daniel Cranafus. And down in P7, Lucas Santos with one of his best runs of the season alongside Ken Miller. Kyle Strykars and Guillaume Potvin round out the top 10. Richard Swindells of Canada and his fellow Canadian Brett Punkari round out the top dozen. But the hits keep on coming. Adam McDonald and Willie Brennan, unlucky 13th and lucky 14th. Jordan Kernow, championship contender. He's going to be very disappointed with a 15th place start, but look for him to move forward. And Jean-Marc Cormier of French Canada starts 16th. And behind them, James O'Brien and Mark Kalin, once again, did not qualify. We do believe we'll see them on track, but can only wait and see. I hope we'll see them. Maybe they're too busy watching Daytona.
Maybe. I hope they're not going to be watching while driving, but they could be.
It's very possible. It's been done before.
Exactly.
There is one driver who's not necessarily watching and driving, but he's having us watch and drive. If we can see the onboard of Brett Punkari, I'm sure we'll be seeing his face over the course of the night. But he's advertising some national Canadian pastimes that I think we'll see at some point tonight.
Yeah, we will. I look forward to that. at 108 degrees on the circuit, by the way. We're racing in the middle of May and in the middle of the day, which means it's a lot hotter in this race than it has been in a lot of the other series this season, which have been using the temperatures and the time of year from where we are right now, helping to keep the tyres in check a little bit, and that is not going to be the luxury that these guys are afforded. It gets very, very hot round here, and the tyres get pulled apart by this circuit anyway, especially on the rear tyres. You're going to have to be really, really careful with these cars coming out of the corners on throttle. Have to be so careful to not burn up those rears.
People taking their time to get in the car, getting every last belt pulled down, maybe getting their pre-race drinks and snacks. James O'Brien has gridded up, which is a good sign. I believe that'll mean Mark Kalin will be on the grid as well. And yes, indeed, I can see Kalin's on the grid. So 18 cars taking the green flag here at COTA, and the iRacing Porsche pace car pulls off for a short pace lap. You're only going to have a couple of seconds here in this final sector to get those tires warmed up.
Yeah, the hour you can see at the top of your screen there is the time limit. We shouldn't have any concerns about that this time, like we did at Mid-Ohio. Should just be the 30 laps here at Circuit of the Americas by the looks of things. I don't think these tyres are going to need too much warming up. First of all, of course, the technical final sector anyway. The rear tyres can take care of themselves with the rear-wheel drive nature of these cars, but the fronts will be taken care of through these final section of corners, and the temperature, residual temperature anyway, will probably take care of them anyway. So not many people are going to be struggling with cold tyres early on here. This short formation lap much more likely to be used by all the drivers, thinking about how they're going to attack turn one, as Brett Pancari is thinking about who's going to win this curling match, I suppose, rather than or watching this advert, whatever this is for. What the hell?
Yeah, apparently we're helping the Canadian television industry. That's nice. But yes, we will see Brett Pancari in many different times tonight, I'm sure. I'll be intrigued to see how Canada's doing in curling, but I'll also be intrigued to see how Brett Pancari does from 12th on the grid. That's, I'd say, about his average starting spot, but he's definitely got pace in that car. He's definitely a driver to look out for, as he's got his fellow Canadian Guillaume Potvin in front of him. Richard Swindell's around him. A little bit of a Canadian battle in the middle of the field. But it's all SRT at the head of the field. Dave Menino and Joshua Chinsky, both of the SRT Green Squad. Dave Menino needs a good week to keep his championship hopes alive after a DNS last week. He didn't start last week. He's got no drop week anymore. He needs to excel, and he's going to lead the field to green as they round the Andretti corner. Dave Menino takes us to green at COTA. Joshua Chinsky lagging back a little bit. He is able to clear the third-placed Rust Racing car. He is able to lead second into turn one, but this is the tightest corner on the track, and it is checkup central in the middle of the field. Everybody makes it through except for one car at the back. Jordan Kernow gets into Adam McDonald, I believe.
I mentioned Kernow needed a good result, and the qualified didn't help. First of all, this start certainly hasn't helped either. He drops right to the back of the field after being spun round, I think, by Mark Kalin, all the other way round in towards turn number one. But Kernow really in trouble, down in 16th place, down well off the back as well. Although he's got himself attached to the back of the pack pretty well again, because side-by-side battling going on for the likes of 8th place. The top 7 have got away quite nicely. Karl Streicher is at the front of the next group, if you like.
Unfortunately, Guillaume Potvin with a huge send into turn 11. Oh. And that was, I don't think, an intentional send. That was missing the braking zone entirely. He wipes himself out. He wipes Lucas Santos out. Huge crash in turn 11.
That was a big crash. Not very often you actually see drivers actually getting off the road there at all. You certainly don't manage that on your own very often. So it's for sure a big bit of contact between those two that has sent them down the field. There's going to be some damage repaired at the end of lap number one, that is for sure. But at the end, and here it indeed is what happened in towards turn one. It was a bit of a squeeze. It wasn't really anyone's fault. It was just too many cars trying to go into turn one at once.
Yeah, but that was Mark Kalin who went around, not Adam McDonald. So any Adam McDonald fans in the chat, I will spare you your heart attack. And there's Guillaume Potvin. Was certainly trying to get it slowed down, but at that point, when you've sent it that deep, it's just there's nothing you can do other than slam on the brakes as hard as humanly possible.
Yeah, you've already made the mistake. One of those things that you really can't get back again once you've done it wrong. So a real shame for those guys down towards the back. There's a lot of damage being dealt back there. Guillaume Potvad already into pit lane along with Lucas Santos, and imagine that Mark Kerlin will be in as well. But the leaders have gone off to a decent start. Was expecting Dave Menino to really put the field under pressure early on, but Joshua Chinsky and Jake Bacancelos have so far been up to the challenge.
Yeah, Menino had a great jump, which certainly helped, but when it comes to race pace, he's absolutely being shadowed by Chinsky and Vasconcelos. Kranifus has had a pretty solid start. He's up 2 spots from where he began this race, and he's being challenged now by Steve Baker for the last spot in the top 5. A little bit of a switchback from Baker through turn 11, and he's going to have a great run down the longest straight in the track.
Yeah, this is your best chance. You've got to do it in towards turn number 12, ideally into the final sector generally, but this is the start of it. Baker looking strong early on the inside line. He's already got his nose ahead on the way into the corner. He's broken quite late there. He's got a very tight line. He's just about going to hang on to it. Kranifus didn't really want to punish him for that small error. Punkari, meanwhile, gets into 8th place. His car Strikehart's having a difficult start to this race after being up inside the top 6 earlier on. He's having a real struggle now and continues to drop down through the field.
Great battle through the stadium section there. Punkari up to P8. Now can Steve Baker run away? He started 5th. He actually lost that spot to Daniel Kranifus, had to fight back to get it back. But does he have anything for the Rust Racing car of Greg Seitz immediately ahead, or the SRT Brigade in 1, 2, and 3? It's still such early days in this race, Ewan. We're scheduled for 30 laps with an hour race. We're only 3 laps into this thing, and this track is exhausting.
Yeah, and as I say, we will get through the 30 laps. It will be a 30-lap race that denotes the end of this one. And as I say, it will be completely exhausting. It's so challenging, this circuit, in terms of the lefts and the rights, the high-speed corners, the low-speed corners. This circuit really does have it all, and you've got to be really careful on these tyres. The top 5 in this race currently on the red stripe tyres, and the rest of them on the blacks, other than, of course, the guys who've had problems. If you've been in pit lane, then there's all sorts going on down there, but Jordan Kernau is the only one other than the top 5 on red stripe tyres at the moment. Got to be so wary of these tyres. You can just see from watching this this race, it's not only very taxing on the drivers, but the tyres as well, coming out the corners, going through these high-speed corners as well. It is really, really taxing indeed. Menino so far has risen to that challenge. He's now 1.5 ahead of Chinsky after being challenged through the first 2 laps.
It's still far too early days to even be talking about championship points, but at the moment, that championship lead will be cut in half by Menino. Punkari and Strikars are going back at it. Strikars repays the favor on Punkari into turn 12, but now through the stadium section, it is switchback central. There's so many different lines. There's so many different opportunities to make a pass. Strikars parks it in the middle of the road to hold Punkari back, though.
Well, this is not the smartest thing these two have ever done. They're on the same strategy. They just need to work together here, agree about who's faster, and stay that way round. I suppose that's where the problem is going to come. Agree who's faster. Well, what racing driver is going to admit that they're not quite as quick as somebody else? It's very difficult to get these two to agree, and it's costing everybody a lot of time here. If you're in the top 7, you're laughing. Kranifus and Miller have made good calls here to get on the primaries here and get away from this group caused by Strikehart's and Punkari, who in my mind are staring each other into the abyss. They are not helping each other at all by continuing this battle.
A little bit of a peek to the inside from Richard Swindells there, trying to take advantage of Willie Brennan for P10. Nothing doing there, but that is the kind of opportunity you have to take all race long with these heavy, long braking zones. If you can even stick a nose to the inside, if you can put the fear in the eyes of the driver in front of you, there's always the possibility that they freak out a little bit, miss the braking zone, and you can sneak to the inside.
There's a lot of these corners like that as well. You can just sneak up the inside before anybody's really realised. I mean, here's another example. Oh, that was a bit more obvious, though, from Kernau. In fact, he made it so obvious he broke a bit late. He'd get away with it. He's on the red stripe tyres into turn 12, or turn 11, excuse me, into 12th place. But yeah, there's a lot of corners like that where you really open the inside out and you can have another go. Here comes Punkari again, coming through for 8th place. Is Strikehart's now going to accept it and let him through? Not really. Punkari's on a really tight line. And, well, again, he is through, but this is just costing them so much. The gap is continuing to fly upwards to the others.
If only this was the race for the lead. How exciting would that be? It's making Willie Brennan very happy. It's keeping him in contention, and Swindells as well, who's now going to be under pressure from Jordan Kernow. He's hoping they continue to battle like this. He wants this to be a 6-car battle for the last couple spots in the top 10. And also, it's great to see Richard Swindells officially representing Atomic Racing. New livery on that Indy car, the first Atomic Racing Indy car of the season. Love to see that that color scheme back.
Yeah, it's being shown off in this battle at the moment. Still going on for 8th place. Kernow made a position into turn 1 last time round, or turn 11 I should say, last time round. He's starting to apply the pressure in towards turn 1. There goes Pancari, wide again, and you can't blame Strike Touch for having to go this time round, because Pancari basically gave that to him, although round the outside at turn 2 isn't going to work. They are losing themselves so much time. I mean, I sound like I'm complaining. I'm not really. It's good to watch, but I'm just saying it's not helpful for them, that's all.
And Brennan got very much out of shape in the S's there. That's one of those sections of the track where if you mess up one corner, you're suffering for about 7 corners afterwards. You're suffering for the entirety of the S's and back up the track. If you lose that little bit of momentum, if you lose that little bit of rhythm, you can lose so much time and put yourself under so much pressure.
Now, lots of different lines chose through turn 11 that time round. Decent run from Brennan. Is Swindells going to have another go? He had a peak at turn 1 a couple of laps ago, but is there going to be a chance this time round? They're all very close, on top of each other, basically. Kernow here needs to make use of these red stripe tyres. He's been stuck in traffic. He hoped to move forward with those red stripes, but unfortunately, the early incident has set him back a little bit. He's now up to 11th place, at least, with that move.
Kernow has gotten by Brennan as well, up into P10. Strike cars sending it a little bit too deep that time. Battle for second is actually heating up more than the battle for the lead as Menino runs away. He's got about a 3-second gap now. Chinsky's actually fallen back into the clutches of Vasconcelos.
Yeah, this is for second place on the bottom of your screen. Dave Menino controlling this race at the front, and what more would we expect, or what less would we expect from Menino? He's just such a strong driver when he gets his head out front here, and he gets the lead at this circuit. He's clearly very, very strong indeed. Side by side in the background there between Brennan and McDonald for 11th place. Adam McDonald having a look down the inside, not quite having it done just yet on the exit of the corner. This is all in that group for 8th place, which now is starting to split apart. Pancari getting away a little bit more, much like he should have done a few laps ago.
Oh, missed it a little bit there, did Brett Pancari. Lost the rhythm, and you can see the sheer speed of Kyle Strikars. Just missing one corner in turn 9, lost him so much momentum, and now Strikars is going to be within draft range. He's going to be within overtaking range. He's only about a car length back. It's just those little errors, and now Brett Pancari's trying to run away.
Well, I said he was, but then he made that mistake, and it was it's a costly place to do it as well. When you get out of shape through those S's, you're just in all the wrong places for the next corner and the next one and the next. Further behind again, McDonald passed Brennan in towards turn 11. That was pretty close, but McDonald again succeeds in that battle. See if Pancari holds on from strike touch now through this sector. He knows he's there, just defending a little bit into turn 15 that time round. Defends successfully as well. Didn't have to go overly defensive. There he is again. He's I can't tell who's winning, but anyway, he's at the moment winning this battle.
Yellow is winning over blue, maybe. Yellow. Oh, it's the province flag. Ontario and Quebec and something or other that I couldn't read in the other one.
Split screen curling games.
Yeah.
It's like NFL Red Zone, isn't it?
Something like that.
So a bit less exciting. But anyway, yeah, it's a good watch, curling, by the way. It's I think it's a bit like endurance racing in motorsport. It's you know, not a lot happening all of the time, but you know, it's generally exciting to watch over a long period of time. There you go. That's my opinion on curling.
There you go. I wonder which Canadian province would you be rooting for? What's your favorite?
Oh heavens, I couldn't even name them all.
I named 2 for you. I named 2 you for free.
I know. Oh, Quebec as well. Did you name that one?
Yeah, you know the big 2 at least. You know Quebec, and I'm leaving you open here.
And and yeah, the one you said earlier, Ontario.
Where Toronto is? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
I'd be rooting for Nova Scotia. I like Nova Scotia.
We're so underdeveloped in the UK with curling. We don't even have an English team. It's just
Darn.
Scottish.
Aye, you got a Scottish curling team?
Oh, no. That's
You've
not what I
unlocked
was
it.
hoping would happen after saying that.
It's a dangerous game, Ewan. I hope no Scottish people are watching.
Yeah, well, they're all the same.
That's true. Except for you.
Well, I'm not Scottish, so...
You're right underneath them, same time zone.
Well, yeah. It only take me 4 hours to get there.
You say only. We're in Texas here. It'd take you 16 hours to get you across Texas.
Yeah, to get me out of the state.
Yeah.
Where do I leave?
Something like that. But as we babble on, like that movie from a couple years ago, Joshua Chinsky and Jake Vasconcelos have continued to squeeze that gap together. Vasconcelos has not been ripping these laps apart, and he's not been catching him at a very fast rate, but he has been catching him, and that's what matters. He's now below a second and just slowly inching forward to his teammate.
Yeah. It's just one of those lurking battles. I think around this circuit, you don't especially want to be that close if you're not intending on making a move in the next few moments. It is worth being a second away or so where Vasconcelos is at the moment. It's worth just sitting there. You're not going to chew through your tyres through the dirty air too much. You're going to get away with that. But also, you want to be lurking just in case there is a mistake. Then you can come in and pounce very quickly. It's a pretty smart way that Vasconcelos is driving this at the moment. He might well decide, you know, the race win's gone here. My focus is second place, and to beat Chinsky, I think the best point of call is to not be right up behind him, just be lurking about 0.8 1 second behind, and just take care of those tyres. Although they will be getting towards the end of their life anyway now.
We do have to think about strategy already. Generally, these races have been 2 stops. So are we going to see a similar thing that we've seen all season, and you do 2 long black runs and 1 short red run? You're going to go 10, 10, 10? You can only wait and see. We don't have to wait for long to see this battle, though. Richard Swindells and Willie Brennan, who's fallen down the order a little bit deeper than he'd like. Swindells holds off Brennan for the moment, but we know Brennan is faster. He was running in the top 10 earlier.
It's not an ideal few moments for Brennan here. Oh, that's wide from Swindells, though, through turn 13. He'll get away with that. He will bring it back to the apex in time and hold on to 12. Yeah, decent job from him to hang on to that. Adam McDonald has gotten free from these guys and has gone up the road with Jordan Kernow, who's now inside the top 10. But now you're starting to see the crossover point, I think. The red stripe tyres are starting to suffer for Jordan Kernow, and suddenly the primaries are coming into this. Kernow's going to be frustrated. He spent most of the red stripe stint, if this is the only one, in traffic, which is what has happened.
What did I say about Jordan Kernow? Always making up for bad qualifyings? Where did he start? 15th? He's already up into the top 10, and we're only 9 laps into this race. There's still many more possibilities for improvement. He's being caught by Adam McDonald, but if he can still pull a top 10 out of this, he'd lose quite a bit of ground in the championship, but he's been very, very strong on the ovals. So Iowa and Pocono be 2 great opportunities for him to bring back any losses he loses here.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Kansas, though, I wouldn't say he's really what would you say? He's not really taken advantage of the ovals as much as maybe he could have done. I mean, even Gateway 2 weeks ago now, he only finished 5th. You know, if we're earmarking him as an oval driver where he's going to make his points on the ovals, got to be doing better than 5th at places like Gateway, unfortunately. I say, I know he would at Kansas, but even so, you've got to be doing a bit better than 5th place at Gateway. Again, big opportunity for him next week, big opportunity for him in the final round as well. But, you know, it's not exactly like his rivals are bad at these other rounds. Vasconcelos won Gateway, for example, and Dave Melano has not really shown himself on the ovals yet because he wasn't even there at Gateway and didn't show a great performance at Kansas, although it was a top 10. So, you know, Kernow's got to do better on those ovals, and he's got to limit the damage better on the road courses. Well, qualifying outside of the top 10 by a considerable margin is not really good enough for a championship contender.
That close crawl I mentioned from Jake Vasconcelos, it does continue, but unfortunately that last lap, he only caught his teammate Chinsky by 18 thousandths of a second. If he's going to make up a 1 second gap, I believe he would have to do that about 50 times. And unfortunately, we only have 20 laps left to go. So he's got to start picking up the pace a little bit. At the same time, he doesn't need to be overly aggressive and push too hard here. He is the championship leader by a fairly solid margin. His drop week is rather incredible. It came from round 4, and it was a P9, which is still a pretty solid result. Vasconcelos definitely has himself positioned as the favorite for the championship, so he wants to maximize his points, doesn't want to spin himself out and lose too much time, as here's Jordan Kernow getting deep in the S's, making a similar mistake, putting himself under pressure from Adam McDonald.
Yeah, tyres are in trouble here. His tyres are in trouble, front tyres, it seemed, through the middle sector there, or the first sector, I should say, through the fast sweepers. He looked to be in big trouble, and McDonald surely is going to punish him for this. He might even get on a bit of push to pass here just to try and clear him, because this could get quite slow, otherwise that's not a very good exit, though, for Adam McDonald. And so he will get onto the button anyway, but that's only to stay with Kernow. It's not to take advantage. So he's going to be hoping Kernow can get his speed back again here in these next couple of moments, because otherwise he could be in a lot of trouble. There are the seconds. Still a lot of seconds to go for everybody. Greg Sykes hasn't even pressed the button yet. Wonder if he's got it mapped.
That's possible. He's also been kind of entirely on his own. He's 3 seconds behind Vasconcelos. He's 6 seconds ahead of Steve Baker. I hope somebody's keeping Greg Sykes company at least, because he's probably very lonely right now. He's had no reason to push to pass because he can barely see another car.
Yeah, well, that might be why. Indeed.
Hope somebody's talking to him on the radio at least, keeping him amused.
Well, maybe. Yeah, it depends. I can imagine it's quite. I can't imagine it's very boring driving this car around this circuit, to be honest. I think it would certainly keep you on your toes at this stage. It's worth noting that we're about third the way through the race now, so you want to have what about 132 seconds left, something like that, which is exactly what Dave Menino's got. He's perfectly
the mathematician,
sort of spreading this out, if you like, throughout the race.
Yeah. Brett Pancari has been the thirstiest of them all. He's used 80 of his seconds, but he's also been in battles for the majority of the race. He had to use a lot of that in his battle with Kyle Strykars that's now strung out a little bit. And this is the closest battle on track right now. Even that Pancari-Strykars battle is now separated by 3 seconds. McDonald and Kernow are putting on the most exciting show on the circuit right now, as here is Brett Pancari, and you can see there's 3 seconds behind him. There's 5 seconds ahead of him. It's lonely in many, many places in the field.
It is. There's Pancari again. Who's winning? Oh,
Quebec's beating Ontario. Looks like 4-0.
Your eyes are very good.
I don't know if is it 4-8 or 4-0. I could be wrong.
I've got no idea. Either is entirely possible, to be honest. So there you go. It looks like there's some early games.
It's 4-8. It's 4-8. Ontario's ahead.
Oh dear. Okay. It's a high-scoring game. Although I don't know how many ends they've played.
I don't know.
No, can't see that.
You're lucky I'm not doing my Quebecois accent.
Fred Jackson, otherwise known as.
It's slightly different. Also, I forgive me, Brett Pancari. I said he was being the thirstiest on push to pass. It's actually been Joshua Chinsky, who's actually used 10 extra seconds in his pursuit of staying ahead of Vasconcelos and chasing down Menino. He's actually used the most push to pass, and therefore, he's also used the most fuel, which might put him in a little bit of danger. Once that first pit stop rolls around, he's going to have to fill that car up a little bit longer, a little bit more, or maybe even pit a little bit earlier.
Yeah, we'll see on that. We're getting towards the halfway stage in the race now, so I think any 2 stops have sort of been eradicated here almost already, unless I suppose some of those on the primaries are going to go for 2 stops. I think those on the red stripe tyres are going to be just 1 stopping here, considering they're going this far already on the reds, although some of them are struggling. Kernow cannot get that corner right through turn 6, and I don't think it's entirely his fault, to be honest. I think his front left tyre is telling him no more, and he's just giving it another lap at the moment. He's just can't hold it. You really need to hold it tight there. You need to make turn 6 into 1 sort of double apex corner, and you need to hold it tight for the second part, but he just can't do it, and I don't think the tyres can do it.
Seems like he's been very good on the exits of the tightest corners, though, which is where he's really gaining an advantage. Right there, out of the exit of turn 11, McDonald was very strong in the braking zone. He's been able to close that gap down. You'll see it again here in turn 12. McDonald's later on the brakes, but on acceleration, on exit, Kurnow just does so much of a better job, and that's why he's able to hold him off. McDonald has to figure out how to get on the throttle a little bit better.
Yeah, it's about being quick in the right places for Kurnow. I suppose he's learned that and would have thought about that because he knew the strategy he was taking on. When you're on the red stripe tyres, you're always going to go through that stage of first of all being quicker, and then through that plateauing period where you're suddenly as quick as the primaries, and then through the slower bit. Now, when you get to the bit where you're slower, you've got to be quick on the exits of the corners, especially around here. All the overtaking opportunities come after long straights for the most part anyway. So you've got to be good off these corners, and there you go again. Although McDonald made a mistake that time. It's made Kurnow's exit look even better, but you're right, he's fast in the right places to sort of speed away out of the corners. The traction's very good, and that's helping him stay in 10th.
Swindells and Brennan still going at it. There's the Atomic Racing livery I mentioned. We've seen Atomic Racing across so many different series in the PRL, from F3 to F4 to GT3 to Super Formula to prototypes. Always good to see an Atomic Racing livery on my screen. I'm not biased whatsoever, and I hope some of his teammates are watching. I feel like Robert Ridgway might be watching, Mr. James Carter might be watching, and they're also watching the battle on the top of the screen because, again, Jordan Kurnow has gotten out of the rhythm and left the door open for Adam McDonald to capitalize.
Oh, it's defence again. Now his exit might be compromised. We've been speaking about him on the traction. He's still good, though. How does he do that? He was narrow on the way in, and his traction was still good on the exit. Or whether it's McDonald who's just not getting very good traction, I'm not sure, but just doesn't stand a chance when suddenly you drop to 6 tenths behind on the exit. Doesn't matter how much push to pass you use, you're not going to stand a chance in towards turn 12. There it is again. Just watch this out the corners. Kurnow has put the hours in. He knows exactly how to modulate the throttle and get this car out the corners, and McDonald just can't do it quite as smoothly.
Let's keep riding on board with McDonald here. I think we'll get a good example of his throttle application through the final corner. Don't get much of an example through these final couple of corners because they're fairly low speed, but I think through turn 20, when you really need to get on the throttle, onto the front straight, the second longest straight in the track, it's be great to watch. You see Kurnow a couple of car lengths ahead of him. McDonald has a good run through the second to last corner. He's better on the brakes into this corner. Yeah, he's just kind of delicate on the throttle.
Yeah, it's just not possible at the moment for McDonald. It's going to be a really frustrating feeling, to be honest, to have this. Steams in towards turn 1. If he's close enough, he'll have a chance on the brakes. That much is very clear. But he's just not good enough on the traction, I'm afraid. And he's struggling to get through as a result. I will say that it's not been a complete implosion here for Kurnow, although his front tyres look to be struggling to. And look at the understeer through there. It's horrific. The understeer through there is absolutely horrendous, but he's getting away with it for the moment. He's just getting in the way for the reasons we've mentioned, and he's not completely imploding. He's not losing loads of time to strike touch. In fact, he's keeping him in check, actually. He's keeping him well in sight. So he's doing all right, and it's not the worst thing in the world for McDonald to be stuck behind him, but he could still be going quicker on his own, that's for sure.
Looked fairly even that time. That was actually a pretty good run for McDonald through turn 11 for once. He's actually within draft range of Jordan Kurnow, and he's on the push to pass. You can see the blue lights flashing. Doesn't throw his nose to the inside, though. Just rides behind Kurnow, tries to force him into a mistake, and he's not quite able to do so. Kurnow holds on. McDonald continues to stay behind, and you see in the background, saw it for just a millisecond there, James O'Brien, who started last on the grid after electing not to qualify. He started to figure this race pace thing out. He's actually just made a move on Willie Brennan up into P13, and he's going to be challenging Richard Swindells in a couple of moments.
Yeah, he's an oval driver, really, by trade, but he's developing as a road course driver in this IndyCar, as now Kurnow comes into the pit lane. This is how it happened. Weaving around in behind the slipstream of Brennan. He was ahead by the braking zone, really, and that was a nice, easy pass for James O'Brien to move up into 13th place. So Kurnow comes in, a long overdue pit stop, really, for him. And McDonald is finally released. He will now make the long trundle down pit lane to one of the first pit boxes because he qualified quite badly. And now he gets his service. O'Brien, meanwhile, around the outside of Swindells. He's going to go through here as well to 11th place.
It's a rare move around the outside in turn 1. That's pretty solid stuff from O'Brien. And now Swindells gets a little bit spooked by O'Brien getting by him. Brennan was going around his outside in the S's, and clearly there was contact there. You see a rear quarter panel bouncing around on the asphalt. Contact between Swindells and Brennan in the S's.
That was not ideal. I mean, you could see it happening in the background already. Side-by-side through here doesn't often work. Brennan on the outside didn't give a lot of room on the inside to Swindells, to be honest. Although Swindells did come in at quite a narrow line. They were always going to collide. Very unfortunate for them both. And that has cost Brennan quite a lot of time. They really should have gone single file through there, as at the halfway stage, Dave Menino comes into the pit lane.
And this stop and Jordan Kernow's earlier stop tell us that there is one strategy in this race. It's going to be a one-stop race. Take your red tires for 15, 16 laps or so, then blacks to the end. Or if you're on the black tires right now, you're going to be able to stretch your red tires to the end as well. So not the widest strategy window, not the most interesting strategy around, but it's going to be a simple day. Baker's down as well. Vasconcelos is down as well. Chinsky, Seitz, and Kranifus are able to extend it for one lap longer, but for the most part, everybody's just trying to split this race in half.
Looks like it. Bit surprised by that, personally, actually. I would have expected a bit more movability, if you like, adaptability to the situation around you before going into pit lane, but no, splitting it in half is probably the fastest way to do it, to be honest, on paper, but whether you get all the track position and whatever factored into that, I'm not entirely sure. So Menino out in 4th place, Vasconcelos in 6th, and those are the only the front three to pit in yet, because Joshua Chinsky is still out in the lead. It is the primary tyres for the both of them, of course, and they're in clean air, which is the most important thing. Don't want to be stuck behind someone.
The big thing to watch here is going to be Joshua Chinsky's pit stop time. Vasconcelos was not using as much push to pass as Chinsky was, so he may not have extended or expended all of the fuel in his fuel tank as fast as Chinsky did. And if Chinsky has a longer stop, he was only about a second or two ahead of Vasconcelos. That could be the ticket to Vasconcelos being further in consideration for second place. Ken Miller on your screen as well has not yet made his first pit stop of the day, so his P5 right now looks like it'll probably become P7, but it's been a fairly strong day so far.
It has. 5th place in the championship so far, winner at Mid-Ohio, but not in the top 10 on any of the other occasions, unfortunately. Not in the top 10 on any other race other than that. Chinsky, I think, used quite a lot of push to pass on that lap, so I'd be watching very carefully here. Jake Vasconcelos, are you going to get this second place or not? I would say probably not. Menino's going to get back in the lead, that's for sure. But Vasconcelos is going to get nowhere near this. Absolutely nowhere near. Now, does Chinsky have a bit of a getting up to speed period here? Or has Chinsky just a better in-lap to get way ahead of Vasconcelos? They got absolutely 5 seconds.
And that was almost a second shorter in the pits for Chinsky. I don't really understand the math behind that. He used so much extra push to pass, and he pitted one lap later, and yet he's put less fuel in. I mean, I guess one less lap would add up to putting less fuel in the tank, but I'm kind of amazed how or where he's managed to save that fuel.
7 tenths is quite a lot of fuel. You know, it's about 8% of the fill he's taken out there. So maybe that's a lap. If we're saying that, slide for Vasconcelos, that's not going to help him either. We're saying that need 15 laps of fuel, about 9 seconds or so for 15 laps. It's difficult maths, isn't it, really? But yeah, maybe it worked, I suppose. 1 lap less. Maybe that's 7 tenths of a second. I'm not entirely sure. It also depends how much fuel they still had in the tank at the time of the fill, and we just don't know these things. So difficult to know. I think the things they're going to be focused on a little bit now, especially in Vasconcelos' race. Is Kranifus going to get to him? I think no, but he's got to be worried about those guys on faster tyres behind.
Race leader Dave Menino just been absolutely untouchable today. Fastest lap, started on pole, literally has not been in touching distance of a single other car since turn 1 with the jump he got. It's been a phenomenal day for him, and it's going to be a phenomenal day in the championship. He's going to close that championship gap down probably by about 6 points based on the PRL point system. Only a 10-point championship gap between him and Vasconcelos with 3 races to go. You'd obviously want to be leading the championship, but that's still a pretty good spot for Menino to be in if he can stay where he is.
That is, yep. Very good place for him to be in. I think over the course of the season, he's generally been losing points. I think the only time he gained points at Baccarat in a race was the race he won at Spa. So he's got to work on that consistency a little bit. On the days when you're not quite firing on all cylinders the way that he is today, for example, he's got to find ways to gain some points on Baccarat on those days as well, or at least not lose so many. But because those have accumulated to a 16-point margin that you can see now. However, on a day like when he's firing, he clearly takes his opportunities. That is for sure. We saw that at the opening round of the season, where he held on from Vasconcelos by nearly 4 seconds. He's holding on at the moment by a bigger margin in this race as well. So taking advantage of his good days, that's all well and good, but he's got to manage his bad ones, and we'll see how that goes starting next week at Iowa. Maybe he'll have a good day, I don't know.
This is going to be a battle to watch. Steve Baker, P5 on the black tires. Daniel Cranifus behind him on the red tires. Cranifus obviously going to fall off a little bit faster, but for now, in the short term, he's only on lap 1 of this stint. He's going to be much faster than Baker. Is he going to be able to dump Baker out of the top 5?
I think so. The red stripe tyres, especially towards the start of a stint, are a lot quicker. Last time around, we didn't get a viewing as their time. At this time, we certainly are going to. Just while we've been following, Cranifus has gained half a second through this final sector, so it is coming down frighteningly quickly now. Just in front of them. That wasn't Greg Sykes coming in, was it? I think that was the lap car. It was indeed. And so these two are going to do battle themselves on the circuit with no interruption. Battle for 5th place. Baker knows it's important. If you can keep him behind for this first bit, those reds will go off, and Cranifus will struggle to overtake him later. But Baker goes deep into turn 1. Cranifus comes up on the exit and will get through.
Excellent switchback from Cranifus. Around the outside, down the bottom of the hill, but he'll have the inside for the start of the S's, and Baker backs out of it, knowing you do not want to go side by side through this sector. And Cranifus takes P5 and now looks up the road. A 5-second gap to Greg Seitz, his teammate. That's a big gap, but does he have the pace to close it down?
Absolutely he does. Last time around, 1:47.8. That was his best lap of the race so far. I think on the next lap after this one, when he's got more of a clean run at things, he might well set the fastest lap of the race. We'll wait and see on that. But last time round, even with the latter part of the lap being held up, 2.2 seconds was the gap between Cranifus and Baker, and it was 2.6 over Seitz. He is going very quickly indeed. It's not going to last, of course. These red stripe tyres go off quite quickly, but he's going to be there quite shortly.
Keep my eyes on the timing here. Seitz also had kind of I'd say an unusually slow lap last time around. A 150.4 is about a second slower than the rest of the field, so I wonder if there was a mistake on that lap. I think curling's come to an end, unfortunately, so if you were watching that stream as a little bit of extra entertainment, I think that's come to an end, unfortunately. But your entertainment in the Cranifus versus Seitz battle is far from over. Get ready for me to spit a couple of numbers at you. 150.4 on that last lap for Greg Seitz. Actually, a 149.5, rather. The time has just updated. 149.5 for him, 149.2 for Daniel Cranifus. So, unfortunately, a 3.6 second gap. Cranifus was only 0.3 faster on that lap. He's going to need to pick up the pace if he wants to bring that down.
Absolutely. And there's going to be plenty of these battles further down that pop up throughout the rest of this race, because, oh dear, not for John Kernow, unfortunately. Is that Kernow in the background? It's Mark Kalin.
Mark Kalin. Mark Kalin in trouble.
Yeah, a lap down. He really is in trouble this afternoon. He's having a pretty difficult race. But yeah, it's going to be down here that I think a lot of the battles are going to be. Further up front, it's going to be more difficult to find, I think, these battles for position. But for 10th place, this is going on. James O'Brien continuing to grow into this race. Both on the red stripe tyres, these two, so no advantage there. But O'Brien's really growing into this.
And this has been one of Adam McDonald's most solid races of the season. It's not quite been the same for Mark Kalin, though, as you see what happened to him into the final corner. Classic final corner stuff, getting on the throttle on very hot tires, and Mark's tough day gets even tougher.
one lap down around this circuit is pretty difficult to achieve, and unfortunately he's comfortably one lap down. In fact, he's a lap down on drivers who are more than 3/4 of a minute off the lead. That's what a difficult race it has been for Mark Cannon, but it's been a difficult season as well, so that's not too much of a surprise, unfortunately, for him. Down towards turn 12, McDonald still ahead of O'Brien. Well, that was nearly a rear ending. O'Brien nearly getting into McDonald. He get away with it, and with 9 laps to go, he will just start to apply some pressure here, try and work his way through, work out how he's going to maybe make this move.
A tale of 2 races in terms of drivers who didn't elect to qualify. Mark Kalin spent the qualifying session on the sidelines and has not had the best of days. James O'Brien also sat the qualifying session on the sidelines, but he's used the first 20 laps of this race to learn, to get faster, and now he's gunning for a top 10, using a little bit of push to pass down the front straight. Realizes he's not quite close enough to Adam McDonald to go for that move, but he's absolutely faster than McDonald. He has top 10 pace that he's figured out how to get over the first 20 laps of this race. It's just a question of how's he going to get there.
He is really. I think he is going to at some point, but yeah, for now the question is how. Second gear through turn 6 that time round, just trying to keep it tight. Now through this final section where your line is so important, because this is the important turn through number 9. Getting a good exit down the hill there, so crucial to a good lap. Otherwise, it does actually become an overtaking chance down there at turn 11. And here we go. O'Brien is a lot closer this time. His traction was good. He'll be on the button here as well. Watch the seconds tick by. McDonald is using some of his final seconds here. He's
and O'Brien gets him into turn 12. Later on the brakes, fresher tires. He'll have P10 for the moment. Gets a little bit deep into the stadium section, though. He's able to hold on. It's red v red, though. Who can do a better job of holding these tires underneath them? McDonald throws it to the inside. Did not expect that to happen. O'Brien holds on again, but has to go wide in that final corner. He is going to hold on for now, but McDonald threw everything at him.
Yeah, I'm not sure if McDonald even held it on the road there himself, to be honest. I think he would have been probably quite out of shape as he was making his way down the inside there. You know, it's all well and good having a dive through turn 15. That's what it's for, but you've got to control the car. Have a look at that. I thought he was out of control. He was sliding his way through, actually cut the corner a little bit. Yeah, I did think it was under control entirely. Again, that is what that corner's for, but he wasn't quite able to execute it there.
It's a nice little drift for good measure, at least. Haven't seen much of those today.
Well, no, it's not the way to do it. I can imagine that these rear tyres are struggling enough as it is, without drifting around.
Got to think about that. The PRL Drift League. I'd be up for that, because there's some cars in this league that are pretty tough to drift. It's tough to drift in an Indy car. It's tough to drift in a GTP car. I'd like to see people try deliberately.
I'm not sure I've ever seen it attempted in iRacing, to be honest, because I don't really think many people think that's what it's for.
Yeah.
But, there you go. Something that people haven't practiced before, done before.
Exactly. And look at this. Last spot in the top dozen. Mark Kalin not actually in contention here. I believe he's just pitted to put a fresh set of tires on. So he's just kind of hanging back here, watching Richard Swindell's and Jordan Kernow go at it. Kernow elects to block. Swindell's going to have to try and do this the long way around. He's on the red tires, though. He's faster and better on the brakes, but nothing doing that time. Kernow hangs on.
Yeah, this was always going to be the problem for Kernow at this stage in the race. He was always going to be on those worst tyres. Now he is looking behind. Swindell's would have been having a look there, and Kernow would have been looking in his mirror a bit too much. He goes a bit deep into turn 15. Again, he's under some pressure on the red stripe tyres. Swindell's will gain through here, but no, the dirty edge gets in his way a little bit here. And Kernow has just got to weather this storm. As long as he does that, he will hold the place, because those red stripe tyres will go off, and they're probably not that far away from going off, to be honest.
It is unfortunate that Kernow's down to 12th, though. Remember, just a couple of minutes ago, we were talking about how he's had a pretty good recovery drive, might hang on to the top 10 at the end of it all, but McDonald was able to get by him and run away to the tune of about 10 seconds. O'Brien has really turned things up. He's run away to take the last spot in the top 10. Curnow might be able to hold on to 12th here, but he was definitely hoping for a couple spots better.
And that's the
when he clonks the sausage.
Oh no, you absolutely have to avoid those in most cars, but especially these. That was pretty bad. But you know, I don't think he was really intending to do that to us. I think he was just out of shape and ended up hitting it.
And you have to be careful doing that because these Indy cars are not known for being delicate, but those front suspension pieces are very delicate. And if you hit one of those sausage curbs in the wrong way, it can totally offset the, in his case, the right front corner of the car entirely. And coming off of turn 11, he looks pretty slow. He may have damage on that car. Richard Swindells is putting the fight back to him.
Side by side, Swindells on a bit of a hiding to nothing on the outside there, but it's about what he does afterwards. Does he get the exit he needs here? Again, the traction good for Curnow. Out of turn 12, it prevents any sort of dive at 13 from Swindells. Now he has a look. Here we go. Down the inside, looking. No chance that time round. So Curnow's holding on again, and you know he's got to just think in his mind, this will not last for the final 7 laps of this race. Here's the curb, by the way. Ouch.
Bonk. I think he was far enough to the right that I don't think he would have caused any suspension damage there, but I'd like to ride on board with Jordan Curnow, actually, and let's see if that wheel's pointed straight down the next straight we see him on. Because again, that was very weak out of the final corner for a guy who we thought was pretty good on acceleration. That time was not so good and actually just totally opens the door for Richard Swindells to get to the inside. Swindells locks it up and is not able to make the move. He's going to try and do it around the outside. Side by side through the S's has not worked often in this race, and Swindells backs off of it to let Curnow through.
Well, surprised Swindells let that go so easily. He knows that surely knows that there's not going to be many opportunities in this race for him, and I would have thought he would give that more of a go, to be honest, because I know it's not possible to go side by side, but he could make the other driver back out. He wasn't really willing to play that game by the looks of it, and he just backed away. So Curnow holds on to 12th again, and again, like I said earlier, he's on limited time here. That's wide from Curnow. He might have just thrown that all away through turn 11. We'll see when we get down the other end of this straight.
He does have push to pass to use, but he's got the same amount as Richard Swindells. He can't afford to use it that much. I really can't tell from the outside. I'd love to ride on board with Jordan Curnow when we get the opportunity, because I want to see. Here we go. Let's see, through this stadium section, it's going to be hard to tell through here because you're constantly turning, but once he gets on a straight, we're going to see if that suspension is bent a little bit, because he's been driving like somebody whose car is not really treating him as normal.
Looked all right to me there on that short straight, but it was only a short straight. Let's see on this next part here. Down the straight. Looks quite straight to me. Looks okay, but so far just not quite driving well enough to look comfortable in this 12th position. It's looking rather under pressure. Adam McDonald, meanwhile, has got past James O'Brien again for 10th place, and that's I think O'Brien might have made a mistake actually.
Yeah, it looks like he's lost about 2 seconds, so I think that may have been a spin. We'll check that when we can. But Jordan Curnow, yeah, not looking like he took any real suspension damage as he almost clonks the curb again, but that car just looks a little bit evil, looks severely understeery through a lot of these long corners. He's just, even with the black tires under him, it kind of just looks like he's used the tires up.
Yeah, it's going to reach that stage in the race now. We are, just 4 laps from the end now, and so, yeah, especially these reds, they're going to be going away. This was what was happening at this stage in the race for the first part. Jordan Curnow was the one who was on the defensive, of course, because he was on some very old red stripe tyres. Surely that's going to start to happen the other way around now.
Here's James O'Brien, who's in turn 1. Throttle happy, loops it around. 90 degrees, and McDonald just drives right by him. But that battle's not over. O'Brien lost about 3 seconds there, but he was a second and a half ahead of McDonald. He's now a second and a half behind McDonald with 94 extra seconds of push to pass. That battle for P10 is definitely not over.
No, not yet. McDonald, I'm not really entirely sure how he's managed that, if I'm honest with you. The amount of seconds you have to use to run out with still 5 laps to go is quite extraordinary. 8 seconds per lap. Now, that doesn't sound like an awful lot, but you get through that very, very quickly indeed. You know, if you're just using it through the entire back straight, for example, every lap, that will use it up by this stage in the race already. But how he's able to, how he's not managed that well enough to run out at this stage, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think O'Brien, for example, is going to use it the whole of his push to pass at all.
You could see, even in just that one braking zone, how much faster O'Brien is. That was one corner, and he brought the gap down by about 0.5 of a second. He's flying here. I think he might be to the back of McDonald before the lap's even over.
Yeah, maybe. Down there on the brakes in towards turn 12. O'Brien can see what's going on up ahead of him here. He can see the 5 car stranded a bit at sea, if you like, with these tyres. O'Brien seems to have kept them underneath him a little bit better. He's certainly kept the push to pass in his pocket, and that was a clip of the curb there through turn 15. McDonald really feeling the pressure, and it's just a great feeling as a driver when you're in behind, knowing that the driver ahead is looking at you in the mirror with concern. That's exactly what's happening between these two at the moment.
By the way, Ted Lowendick, I saw your joke in the chat, and I am strategically choosing to ignore it. No happy meals required here. It is not a happy meal for Adam McDonald. He is not happy at all. Those tires have been chewed up quite a bit. And if I'm not mistaken, he's got another driver's name on his on the little strake on the back of the car. So representing Will Lyon, I think. He's got the power of himself and Will Lyon going here.
Probably just stolen someone else's livery, I think.
Probably. That's how they do it in Scotland.
Wow, what a nasty thing to say. Oh dear.
Drank a little bit of buckfast, do a little bit of theft. I haven't seen Train Spotting, so I can't talk about it.
I'm presuming that's a film.
Yes. I forgot it's you. You're not a...
Yes, if there's a film I've not seen.
You've seen maybe one movie.
I doubt that. Anyway, side by side in towards turn 12. This is for 10th place, and this is on now. Oh dear, he's just got nothing to defend with. O'Brien came from miles back. He's on the outside line. Oh no, not quite. Ooh. He's overdone it there in towards turn 12. He had the line. He had the opportunity, but he couldn't do it. Now he dives for the apex. He gets the place, but McDonald was never going to hold on there. With no push to pass, it's very difficult.
And O'Brien has indeed made a happy meal of Adam McDonald. Aren't we all happy now? Everybody, round of applause. We did it together. We finally made it work.
It's an unhappy meal for Adam McDonald.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a thing that somebody did. It was like at some vegan restaurant in Los Angeles. They did an unhappy meal.
It's quite good. It's quite a good name for a meal.
It is.
If you're into satire menus.
I mean, I hope the fine folks at McDonald's corporate aren't watching, but I feel like a McDonald's meal can be an unhappy meal quite a lot of the time. You're not really happy when you walk into that place.
Well, depends.
Depends on the day. Depends on what you've done before.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. My meal earlier wasn't that unhappy. Yeah.
There you go. What'd you get?
I'm not going to discuss.
You're not going to reveal your McDonald's order?
No.
You get something embarrassing? You got a salad or something?
I'm not. No. You don't go to McDonald's for that. Well, I don't have one at all, actually. Salad.
Interesting.
I know someone, by the way, who gets the fruit instead of a hash brown.
Oh, disaster.
Yeah, no, it's not me, but I won't expose him as.
That's an especially unhappy meal. We're riding on board with Richard Swindells now, though, and with only 2 laps to go, somewhat surprisingly, this race has flown by a little bit. Swindells might get one last bite at the McDonald's replacement apple, and he might have a shot at Jordan Kurnow down the back straight here.
Yeah, down the back straight. He's quite far back at the moment, but can he use some push to pass to get into the fray? Well, not really. Kurnow just used a second or two there just to get himself in further away, and he's holding on. I'm surprised this is not going Kurnow's way a bit more by this stage, to be honest with you, because at this stage in the stint last time round, when it was the other way around, Kurnow was really struggling on some old red stripe tyres, but maybe he didn't take good enough care of them while he was trying to make all those overtakes. I suppose he did have that spin at turn 1 as well, which didn't help, or that contact, I should say, at turn 1, which probably didn't help. But even so, Swindells has taken much better care of his red strap tyres than it looked like Kurnow took care of his in the first part of this race. They're surprisingly close.
Trouble for Brett Pancari in P9. His battle with Kyle Strykars has continued, and I believe it's only continued because of a mistake out of Pancari. 2 laps to go. Wide for Jordan Kurnow on your screen that time, so Swindells is going to get another bite at it. He's going to peek the nose into turn 1. Kurnow moves in the braking zone to cover him off. Yet again, Swindells can't get by, but he's poking. He's making sure Kurnow knows he's there.
You shouldn't really do that when you're in Jordan Kurnow's position there. You shouldn't move in the braking zone like that. He's looking up towards turn 1. It's actually a shorter braking zone, and he'll get away with it that time. But as a general rule, you shouldn't really do that. Otherwise, you will end up with the driver behind you up over the back of you. Meanwhile, Strykars is on the back of... what's he doing here?
That's how he got by Brett Pancari.
That's how he got past, yeah, of course. That's how he got past Brett Pancari. So that has turned around as well. It looks like Pancari's just run out of steam at the end of this race on these tyres, much in the same way that Strykars was struggling towards the end of the last stint on his tyres.
And now, not far behind that Kurnow and Swindells battle, Dave Menino has taken the white flag and is now on a little bit of a victory lap. He's pulled 8 seconds over his teammate Joshua Chinsky. He has been totally untouchable all day long. And now all he has to do is cruise this car to the finish, and he's got yet another win this season.
Yeah, if there were bonus points for the convincingness of victory, then Dave Menino would have all of them at the moment. He has never been in doubt from qualifying, really. That's one of the biggest qualifying pole margins I've seen for some time in the PRL, half a second, and this has been a dominant drive as well. He's led from start to finish. He's pulled out the margin steadily, where Josh Chinsky put him under a bit of pressure initially in the first 2 laps. He stuck with him within a second over that first lap or 2. That didn't phase him at all. He just slowly stretched the elastic until it broke pretty early on. And he's going to cruise home to a victory here in some very crucial championship points.
At the start of the season, Menino impressed us all. Qualified 6th at Spa, went on to win the first race of the season. Since then, there's been 4 different winners. Jordan Kurnow won at Kansas. Mitchell Ian Green won at Lime Rock. Ken Miller won at Mid-Ohio. Jake Vasconcelos won at Gateway. And now Dave Menino wins at COTA to become the first driver to win 2 races this season. The championship gap comes down even more. Menino and Vasconcelos going to be separated by 10 points after tonight. Joshua Chinsky comes home in second. A solid day from him as well, with minimal qualifying time. And 10 seconds down the road is the aforementioned Jake Vasconcelos, still going to hold on to the championship lead. But his championship rival showed him up tonight.
Absolutely, he did. And he's got to hope that that inconsistency that Dave Menino has shown throughout the season so far remains, because if this Menino turns up for the final 4 weeks, he is in big, big trouble. Speaking of big trouble, Kyle Strykars is slowing down and stopping on the back straight. He was ahead of Brett Pancari in 8th place. He had a great final stint in this race to get ahead of Pancari. Now, all of a sudden, he seems to be... Well, I thought he was out of fuel, but I don't see how that would be possible. He's certainly slowing.
Yeah, I don't know what else could have happened there, but that's unfortunate for Kyle Strykars. Loses his spot to Willie Brennan as well. Was gunning for a top 10 with his SRT teammates, and it is not going to be the case at the end of it all. Jordan Kurnow gets P11 instead of P12 for his efforts. 1 more corner to go, and he survives the Richard Swindells challenge. Going to be a much tougher job in the championship for Kurnow now, finishing 10 spots behind his closest championship rival, but there's 3 races left in the season. Anything can happen. And Kyle Strakars has not actually made it to the finish, so I think he did run out of fuel. I think that's what happened. I think he underfueled the car, and the poor guy will finish as the last car on the lead lap. Dave Menino dominantly wins at COTA. Joshua Chinsky, his teammate, comes home in second, and Jake Vasconcelos rounds off the podium and holds on to the championship lead. Greg Seitz had a very quiet day today, but still gets a 4th for his efforts. Daniel Kranifus was trying to chase his teammate down, ends up in 5th though. Steve Baker, quiet day for him as well, from 5th to 6th. Ken Miller, P7, and Brett Punkari, after a race-long battle with Kyle Strakars, ends up on top in P8. James O'Brien goes from 17th on the grid to finish 9th. Great run from him. And Adam McDonald rounds out the top 10. Jordan Kernow, P11, Richard Swindell's P12. Kyle Strakars, unfortunate for him. I think he's going to be credited with a P14, actually. Brennan did jump him by the checkered flag. Guillaume Potvin and Mark Kalin went 1 lap down each. And poor old Lucas Santos took a Guillaume Potvin cruise missile to the face in turn 11 early on, and that was the end of his day. But now, Ewan, as we wait for our podium of drivers to make their way up into the interview zone, that was one of the most straightforward races of the season, I'd say. It was 1 stop, and the fastest driver won dominantly.
Yeah, I would say it's probably the most straightforward of the season. Dave Menino's win was very convincing. As I said, there was points for the dominance of the win. He would certainly have gained a lot more on Jake Vasconcelos, but as it is, he's only decreased the lead to 10. And I think he'll be fine with that. It's still in Vasconcelos' hands. If he finishes around and ahead of Menino over the last few rounds, then he will still win the championship, but we're in for a much more interesting fight after this race.
And Dave Menino is here with us now, your race winner. 10-second gap from pole, fastest lap, 1 incident point. How did you figure out COTA this well?
Lots of practice. So yeah, just spent the last 2 days, ran probably 6 to 8 officials, and just kind of got the hang of it.
So it's now a 10-point gap in the championship by my calculations, maybe +1 or so around there, but it's still very, very close. Does this give you a little bit of momentum, knowing you beat Jake by 20 seconds today?
Yeah, for sure. I'd like it more if there were 3 road courses to end the season, but yeah, I mean, I'll just need to kind of, get some practice in on the ovals, get a bit more familiar with those, so hopefully I can, get some top 5s in those ovals.
Have you driven at Iowa yet? I know we had to get you Kansas for that week of races. So have you driven on Iowa yet?
I think I got to buy that one too, and Pocono. So this time I'm going to try and do a bit more practice, try to get the hang of weight jacker and all the kind of intricacies that come with oval racing.
All right, and also you're the first driver to win more than 1 race this season, so congrats, and we'll see you at Iowa next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Dave Menino, your victor at Circuit of the Americas, came home 10 seconds over his teammate, who's also pretty strong today. Josh Chinsky is with Ewan.
Josh, welcome in. Congratulations on finishing second here tonight. How did you find the race? You stuck with Menino early on, but couldn't stay with him. How come? Was he just too quick, I suppose?
He was just too quick, and I didn't do a whole lot of prep this week. I got really busy with just actual life stuff. So I knew if I tried to push any harder, I was going to go over the limit. So I wanted to make sure I could keep it within what I could actually finish the race with. And it just turned out that, of course, I was fast. I was slower than Dave. I mean, he ran an awesome race. Kudos to him. It's great to get a top 3 for SRT for a podium lockout. Yeah, it doesn't make up for my DNFs for rounds 2 and 3, but I'll take it.
Well, I was going to say, you've only started and finished 3 races now, but you've been on the podium twice. Just what help can you offer towards the team to maybe take, I know your team itself isn't maybe going to be fighting for the team's title, but to help SRTE try to take a team's title at least, and maybe one of your drivers taking the drivers as well. What role are you going to play in that in the last few rounds if we're going to be seeing you there?
Yeah, I'm just going to try not to get involved in the fight, really, of where if it comes down to it, I don't want to be a hindrance. But at the same time, it's a little weird because we've got both Dave and Jake competing for the championship and the driver. So I feel like I can't really let one by because then that ruins the other person. So I'm kind of in a weird situation right now, but overall, just trying to do what I can for SRT Orange with the points, and then we'll go from there.
All right, congratulations on finishing second here tonight, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks very much. Joshua Chinsky, second place here tonight at COTA.
And we finish with third place. Jake Vasconcelos came home in third to round off the podium. Jake, not quite the pace you wanted with your two teammates, but you came home third, and you're still going to be leading the championship. Are you satisfied with today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll take it. The luck of the puppy.
The luck of the puppy, indeed. 2 races now out of the final 3 are going to be ovals. How are you feeling about... You won at Gateway earlier this season. You got another short oval at Iowa. You got a super speedway at Pocono. How are you feeling with your 10-point championship lead?
I'm feeling all right. I've definitely learned a lot for the ovals. So I just got to keep it clean. I have a decent drop week for the next 3 weeks. So if anything happens, I'll just be okay. But yeah, I'm feeling good.
Good to hear it. Luck of the puppy, indeed. Congrats on the podium, and we'll see you at Iowa next week.
All right, thanks, man. See you then.
Jake Vasconcelos rounds out our podium sitters, an SRT sweep yet again at COTA, absolutely helping them in their hopes in the team championship. Private label Team Hype, or rather just Team Hype, they only had 1 car finish with James O'Brien in 9th. And as mentioned, next week we travel to Iowa Speedway, the pre-repaved Iowa Speedway. So there's multiple lanes. It's going to be under the lights. It's a very short track, only 7/8 of a mile, but it's one of the best for IndyCar racing. So we hope you'll join us in 1 week's time. We hope you'll join us for any and all PRL days here on RaceSpotTV. You got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Lots of racing action. But for now, I've been Joey Tebbin. Ewan O'Leary's been Ewan O'Leary. Our producer has been Ramiro Augustine Cisneros. And until we see you next time, so long.